Welcome to a special NFL playoff divisional playoff power rankings as we rank all 8 teams headed into the playoffs this weekend. And I can tell you this, but for all 8 of these teams, even the guys ranked 7th or 8th, I can see any of these teams winning their games this weekend. It's that close in the NFL this season, and that was proven on wild card weekend where all but 2 games went down to the wire. And really that first game, San Francisco trailed Seattle at halftime. So the only real, true, complete blowout would have been the Dallas Tampa Bay game. And Tampa Bay was probably the worst team, not even probably, they were the worst team in the playoffs. So you kind of had to expect that. But we're going to go ahead today and we're going to look at the top 8 teams. I want to remind you guys, I'm Mike Goodpaster. With the Grueling Truth. And the Grueling Truth, as always, is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Make sure you check them out at betting.net. All right, guys, let's go ahead. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top. Number 8, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a dangerous team, and they can go to Kansas City and win. Now, the Jaguars had an amazing comeback win against the Chargers, which was much like their 2022 regular season. Trevor Lawrence in the offense was out of sync with mistakes in the first half before finding a balanced and explosive up-tempo groove in the second half. Similar to the season where they started off the season rough, they finished it strong, beating teams like the Dallas Cowboys at the end, beating the Tennessee Titans the last game of the season to win the division. And the defense started out bending and not breaking before they made some critical game-changing stops in the second half. They remain red hot with 6 straight wins. They have unwavering confidence with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, but scoring enough will get tougher in the divisional playoff round. Now, they are going to play a Kansas City team that is just average on defense. So if Trevor Lawrence can eliminate these mistakes, because let's face it, if he turns the ball over 3 or 4 times in the first half at Arrowhead Stadium, the Jacksonville Jaguars season will be over. But I don't think enough can be said about what Doug Peterson's done to get the Jaguars back on track, and even more importantly, get Trevor Lawrence back on track. He's a guy that looked like he was going to be a bust, but he was put in a situation with Urban Meyer that most quarterbacks would have been a bust with. So our number 8, and like I said, it's not to downgrade them because they're a very good football team and they could win this weekend, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. At number 7, we've got the New York Football Giants, which I don't think anybody expected would be in the playoffs. Brian DeBall has done an outstanding job. The Giants took out the Vikings with another dazzling display of running the ball and passing the ball from Daniel Jones in his first ever playoff game. They also ran well when needed with Saquon Barkley as a dual threat. And more important, they stopped the run after struggling so much in the regular season. I don't think enough can be said about the job defensive coordinator Wink Martindale has done with this team. And the same thing, Brian DeBall, I think, overwhelmingly confirmed his Coach of the Year status. He gets a 3rd shot to take down the Eagles. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, the Giants JV team basically took the Eagles to the wire. This is also a divisional matchup against the Giants. And as we saw this weekend, a lot of people thought the Bengals would blow out the Ravens and that the Dolphins would get blown out by the Bills. Divisional matchups are really hard to deal with, especially when you're playing a team that knows you so well for the 3rd time. But I think a lot here needs to be said for Brian DeBall. Really similar to Doug Peterson. Great football coach. He went in, he changed the culture immediately. And he started the season out with Daniel Jones basically telling him, don't lose us the game. As the season has progressed, little by little, he's given him more reign to do stuff in this offense. And we saw that come to fruition completely, full cycle from week 1, what we saw in the playoff game at Minnesota last week, where Daniel Jones played the game of his life. Now, to beat the New York Giants, he's going to have to play the game of his life again. But there's no reason after what we just saw that couldn't happen. At number 6, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. I can see the Cowboys being ranked as low as 8. I can see the Cowboys making it to the Super Bowl. They're that talented of a team, but they have Mike McCarthy at coach, which is worrisome. You have Dak Prescott, which is worrisome because he's been a turnover machine, especially in the second half of the season. Just look back at the Jacksonville game, look back at the Washington Commanders game to end the season. They had a lot of issues turning the ball over there. Now, the Cowboys aren't going to get their rematch with the Eagles just yet. They're going to have to go to San Francisco and play the 49ers. And Mike Parsons and the defense will have to be better, even than they were against Tampa Bay, because let's face it, Tampa Bay is a limited team. Now, Dak Prescott lit up the Buccaneers with a clean, super efficient game while staying on top or staying with his top targets, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, and Michael Gallup. Dallas must now exercise the demon of San Francisco, which hastens its exit a year ago into the playoffs. Will this be any different? Only time will tell. I think that San Francisco is the better team. I think they're the better coach team. I think they have an advantage almost everywhere. When you look at the defense, you look at the offense. I mean, with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, the San Francisco 49ers are almost explosive to anybody in these playoffs. The Cowboys are going to have their work cut out for them. At number 5, this might surprise a lot of people, but my number 5 are the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, the Eagles didn't play this week because they're one of the top 2 seeds. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. They got a needed bye, maybe, for Jalen Hurts' right shoulder to get a little healthier. My only question is this. Jalen Hurts is more of a timing passer. And we saw a couple weeks ago when he played against the Giants, he was really rusty. My question is, he's going to have 2 weeks off again here coming into this game. Is he going to still be rusty? Because my guess is he is. And when you look at that, Jalen Hurts to me is nowhere near the level of a Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow. He's had a great season. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but he has to play well for this team to win. Now, can they get back to the relentless scoring that they did earlier in the season? I just don't see that happening here. And like I said, it's a timing offense. Nick Sirianni's done a great job with this defense. The Eagles should beat the New York Giants, but I think the game is damn near a toss-up right now. If you look at the way the teams are playing over the last 4 weeks of the season in the playoffs, just last 4 weeks, the Giants can compete with the Eagles. The Eagles, to me, are the second best team in the NFC behind the San Francisco 49ers. So I've got the Philadelphia Eagles at number 5. My number 4 might surprise people too, the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember this about the Kansas City Chiefs. They have lost to Buffalo at home. They lost to the Bengals in Cincinnati. But the Chiefs have found plenty of versatility in their offense around Patrick Mahomes. They're in some way more dangerous this year because of the ability to spread the ball around to backs, wide receivers, tight ends. And it goes beyond Travis Kelce now. And before, of course, it was Kelce, it was Hill, it was Watkins. They had all these guys. But I think what we've seen is Patrick Mahomes does not take as many chances without Tyreek Hill on the field as he did with Tyreek Hill on it. So the whole key here is, because they aren't as talented as what they were, but they seem to play better as a team right now. They struggled over the last 5 or 6 games of the season. They struggled to beat Malik Willis when he was the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. They almost lost to Houston, Texas, but those were almost. They still found a way to win. Now, Mahomes will need to avoid the mistakes that bit him in the ass the last couple postseasons in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers. And then last year, the 2 costly turnovers in the AFC Championship game that blew a 21-3 lead. He will have to be in full MVP mode to get this team back to the Super Bowl, but that is capable. He is capable. The issue with the Chiefs is on defense. The defense is going to have to play at least average for them to have a chance. And if they can play competent, complementary defense, they could go all the way to the Super Bowl. My number 3, the Buffalo Bills. All right, now there's a lot of questions with the Bills, just like there are, I think, with most of these teams here. And with the Buffalo Bills, they have not played well as of late. The Bills got sloppy with Josh Allen's 3 turnovers, too much of a dependence on throwing the ball down the field when they survived the Dolphins. But in the end, they got what they needed out of the running game. Their biggest concern is how their defense still managed to give up a ton of points and lose a sizable lead to an opponent with a shaky, inexperienced quarterback ahead of Joe Burrow coming to town. Now, what we saw in the Monday night game, even though there was only 10 minutes of it, was that the Bills can't cover the Bengals. Not with their wide receivers. I don't think they can stop the Bengals' run game. A lot's been made of the Bengals having 3 offensive linemen out, which is a huge deal. But the other thing people forget is the Buffalo Bills' offensive line is not very good either. They gave up 22 pressures against the Miami Dolphins. The Cincinnati Bengals defensive front with DJ Reader, Joseph Asai, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. I mean, they are loaded up front. They're probably 7 or 8 deep on the defensive line. They can rotate. They can wear you out. The Buffalo Bills offensive line is going to have just as much trouble as the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line will in this game. At number 2, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's not a complete homer, guys. I don't have them at number 1. Now, the Bengals offense fought through a grind against a tough Ravens defense at home. Joe Burrow still made the necessarily clutch plays. The thing to me that separates Joe Burrow from Josh Allen is the fact that Joe Burrow doesn't force near as much stuff. He doesn't turn the ball over as much. He's not as wild with the football. Now, the Bengals defense had an off night against the run game, but you have to realize the Baltimore Ravens offense in the NFL is similar to an Army or a Navy, a wishbone offense in college football. It's really hard to prepare for. And the Baltimore Ravens prepared their team all year in the offseason by the players they signed, picking up Roquan Smith. They are designed to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. So as a Bengals fan, I worried more about playing the Ravens than I did going to Buffalo or Kansas City because the Ravens are just always going to be a tough game for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the one thing about the Bengals defense, people forget this. The Bengals defense took them to the Super Bowl last year. It has taken them to the second round of the playoffs this year. Last year, you had the Jermaine Pratt interception at the end of the wild card game. You had the interception at the end of the divisional playoff game. You had an interception overtime and actually in the fourth quarter by B.J. Hill to kind of turn the game. But the fourth quarter interception or overtime interception by Von Bell was the difference in that game. So it was basically Patrick Mahomes makes those mistakes. Josh Allen makes those mistakes. Joe Burrow, at least so far in the postseason, has not made those mistakes. And if Joe Burrow takes care of the ball, there's no better complement of offensive weapons than there are. I mean, you look at the backfield, you got Mixon, you got Pirine, wide receiver, you got Boyd, you got Higgins, you got Chase. Hayden Hurst has been a stud at tight end. The question is going to be, can the Bengals work around a porous offensive line? We saw it do it last year where Joe Burrow almost had to be Superman to get the Bengals to the Super Bowl. He may have to be Superman to get them there again this year, but shit, maybe he's Superman. All right, remember, guys, it's not just sports betting. Betting.net compares the best online casinos. Sit back, relax, and play the top online slots, poker, and table games. Check them out at betting.net. At number one, we've got the San Francisco 49ers, which to me, this is a no-brainer right now because over the last, since October 23rd, I think it was, the 49ers have not lost a game. The 49ers offense kept on rolling as a near unstoppable force in the eventual wild card playoff round of the Seahawks to make it 11 consecutive victories. With Deebo Samuel back healthy as a massive dual threat, the opponents have a really tough time containing him. You throw in Christian McCaffrey, you throw in George Kittle, you throw in Brandon Ayuk. This team offensively at the skill position part is up there with the Cincinnati Bengals. They have as many skill position players as almost anybody. Now, the 49ers still carry a high floor with the run defense and rushing attack. And Nick Bosa's pass rush, I mean, Nick Bosa can get after it, which makes your pass coverage, which may be a little bit more of a weakness. It keeps it from being exposed. But that pass coverage for the 49ers is a weakness. They're playing the Dallas Cowboys this week, and the Cowboys have enough weapons there to really give the 49ers trouble with that passing game. I don't think this game is such a cut and dry blowout as most people think. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be there. I think this game goes down the stretch. And then it's going to come down to Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. Brock Purdy has not shown a propensity to turn the ball over. Dak Prescott has. The difference is this. Dak Prescott has a larger skill set. So if Dak doesn't turn the ball over, the Cowboys will win the game. But with that being said, I think he will turn the ball over. Brock Purdy will be efficient. Brock Purdy will get the win for the 49ers. All right, guys, that's my top 8. Number 8, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 7, the New York Giants. Number 6, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 5, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. Number 2, the Cincinnati Bengals. And number 1, the San Francisco 49ers. All right, guys, I want to remind you tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll have the NFL Pickup Show with myself and NFL beat writer Dan Kornhauser, former Indiana basketball legend Steve Risley, and Joe Spillman. Make sure you check us out at 8 o'clock live on The Grueling Truth. Make sure you go check us out and follow us on Twitter at Grueling Truth. Like, subscribe, do all that thing. Hit the notifications for YouTube, The Grueling Truth channel, and go follow us on Facebook. But for now, guys, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.